And they would remember the way door frames remember the silhouettes that brush past them year after year, and the way kitchen tables remember the elbows of conversations that change the temperature of the room. The remembering did not arrive with trumpets. It seeped in like the faint smell of cinnamon after cookies have already been eaten, a soft, stubborn afterglow that refuses to stop being pleasant. The days that followed Northern Avenue's Unity Day could have been ordinary, but ordinary is a word invented by people who haven't watched a fourth grader teach a grown man how to breathe during thunder. On Monday morning, the sun pretended to be an alarm clock and woke the street with a bright nudge. Edith moved around the kitchen with her particular brand of choreography egg whisk pan pivot plate spin, while humming the quiet melody that had by now drilled a tunnel from routine to meaning. Archie unfolded the newspaper and gave the headlines the look of a man who distrusts anything, written in font sizes larger than truth. Prices up again, he announced to no one and everyone. At this rate, coffee will need a cosigner. Coffee already cosigns. Our mornings, Edith said cheerfully, pouring a cup like mercy. Stephanie entered with Thunder skipping beside her. The dog had adopted the morning as a personal project. He likes the sun, she declared. He thinks it's a ball we forgot to throw back. It's a ball full of radiation. Archie countered, then sipped his radiation with cream and 2 sugars. Stephanie had a note in her hand folded with the ceremonial care normally reserved for treaties. "Can I put this on the fridge?" she asked. Asking permission to post a note on the refrigerator in this home is like asking the ocean for a sip, Edith replied, proud and amused. Stephanie stuck the note and read it aloud in case the magnets were illiterate. "Sometimes the loudest sound in the house is trust." Archie stared at the note for longer than a man should stare at anything that isn't a sunset or a steak. He adjusted it by an imperceptible millimeter, which was his way of saluting without saluting. The school week had planned. The principal announced a kindness chain initiative for every act of kindness recorded. A paper link would be stapled to a hallway chain, and if the chain reached all the way around the main corridor, there would be a pizza party strong enough to make even the lactose intolerant reconsider their beliefs. Stephanie came home and asked the practical question, "How do we measure kindness?" Archie answered with the conviction of a man who had measured arguments with a ruler. "You measure it in expenses. If it costs you, it's probably kindness." Edith countered with the wisdom of someone who has measured silence. "Or in quiet. If the room feels gentler after you leave, you did it right." Stephanie decided to test the hypothesis at school. Day 1, she gave Annie the seat closest to the window during reading time, even though Stephanie loved watching the trees practice wind. Day 2, she helped a first grader find his missing backpack, which turned out to be on his own back, thus proving that not all mysteries are majestic. Day 3, she left a sticky note on Miss Carter's desk that said, "Thank you for making brains feel safe." The hallway chain grew loop by loop, a rainbow snake around the school's spine. Meanwhile, rumors stubbornly attempted to stay interesting, but the neighborhood had grown bored with them. When Mrs. Ferguson tried to mention temporary arrangements, Archie replied, "We replace temporary with Tuesday. It shows up reliably and accomplishes something." Even Mr. Watson, who had once argued that pigeons were government drones, nodded approvingly whenever he passed the bunker house, which is as close as a conspiracy theorist gets to endorsing reality. On Wednesday, a new visitor arrived at the door, a lanky teenager named Nolan with a guitar case he wore like a second spine. He was part of the art workshop Stephanie attended and had come with a message from the teacher, a community showcase evening open mic style, bring your heart, but keep it decent. Nolan asked if he could practice in the bunker living room because his apartment walls were currently having an argument with a power drill. Archie eyed the guitar like a wooden tax on it. "You any good?" "I'm honestly okay," Nolan said, the most suspicious answer in the English language. But when he strummed, the room changed shape. Even Thunder stopped auditioning for most energetic. Stephanie listened with her notebook open, drawing the notes as little windows rectangles you could see through. "I hope they have chairs," Archie grunted. Good music needs chairs. Standing ovations are for post-game shows and emergencies. The showcase was held in the multi-purpose room, a space that smelled like possibility and floor cleaner. Kids performed songs, read poems, showed paintings. One girl tap danced so earnestly that you could hear her feet negotiate with destiny. When it was Nolan's turn, he sang a song about trains leaving and how sometimes the station is the bravest thing staying put with its clock. Stephanie didn't perform. She stood by the doorway, humming softly, a backstage lighthouse. Afterwards, the art teacher placed a ribbon in her hand, unceremonious as a secret. "For the Stove Lighthouse," she whispered. Some things don't need a stage to be seen. On the walk home, Archie declared the event a success, because no one used the phrase soundscape incorrectly. Edith declared it a success because 3 parents hugged their kids like revelation. Stephanie declared it a success because her drawing of windows looked like they belonged on a real building. The next morning brought a letter with government fonts. Archie sniffed the envelope as if bureaucracy had a scent. Health inspection for pets, he read. Dog needs shots. Thunder will not enjoy this development. Shots help keep him safe, Edith said. Safety is a long-term warmth. Stephanie hugged Thunder. We'll get him bravery cookies, she promised, inventing a concept the pet industry would later monetize. The vet's office was a museum of animal feelings. Posters showed smiling cats who had never met a vacuum. A golden retriever in the waiting area achieved sainthood by not stealing anyone's treats. Thunder trembled like a song in a bottle. You're okay, Stephanie whispered. I'm here. We do scary together. The vet, a woman with calm hands and heroic stickers, administered the shots with efficiency and grace. Thunder yelped exactly 1 syllable, then buried his face in Stephanie's jacket as if ashamed of being honest. Brave boy, the vet said. Brave is doing it anyway, Stephanie replied. The vet blinked. Do you write greeting cards? They returned home with a certificate, 3 stickers, and the dog equivalent of bragging rights. On the fridge went another note. Brave is when your hands shake and you still hold. On Friday evening, a smell of garlic and community seeped into the street. The block had decided to start a rotating supper club, house to house, dish to dish, story to story. Edith was up first. She cooked pasta the way some people hold hands warm, consistent listening. She prepared a salad that made lettuce feel important. Archie contributed by removing all chairs that wobbled and declaring them existential threats. Neighbors arrived, balancing casserole dishes and expectations. Mrs. Ferguson brought her apology soup again, now an official delicacy. Mr. Watson contributed bread, shaped like an inside joke. Nolan showed up with his guitar promising volume awareness. People ate, laughed, asked gentle questions. When folks inevitably asked about Thunder, Archie shrugged. He pays rent in loyalty and door alarms. Thunder, as if on cue, barked at nothing in particular, proving his worth. At some point in the evening, the power blinked and surrendered. The room went dark in a collective ah that balanced fear and novelty. Nobody move, Archie ordered, as if arresting the darkness. And then habit rose. Like a practiced tide, Edith reached toward the stove and clicked on the small light, the square of warm insistence that said, we're not lost, we're located. That Mrs. Ferguson whispered is the most beautiful lamp I've ever seen. It's a philosophy Nolan added, strumming a soft chord into the dim. People found seats again, this time by the light of phones, and one emergency candle shaped like a confused snowman. Conversation lowered its volume, which had the side effect of increasing truth. In that softened dusk, people told stories they didn't usually bring to potlucks. One man spoke of losing a job and finding a skill he had misplaced in childhood. A woman spoke of a mother who cooked stew so patient that it made stubbornness edible. Edith shared how humming began as something to keep her hands from shaking and became a bridge to places without maps. Even Archie told a story, though he disguised it as a complaint about the price of bolts in 1973. The power returned with a blink like a sheepish apology. People cheered for electricity the way ancient sailors must have cheered for land. When the night ended and dishes volunteered for morning, Stephanie added yet another note to the fridge. When the lights went out, we could still see each other. Saturday stretched out like a cat who knew it looked good. Stephanie proposed a project, a neighborhood window day, where everyone placed something meaningful in their front window. An object, a word, a drawing, to signify the air inside. We'll make a map, she said, so people can walk and look and learn. Archie objected on principle, which is to say he objected to everything before breakfast. Sounds like nosy tourism. Its gentle noticing Edith rephrased, and the phrase sat better on his plate. They drew a route-printed simple flyers, thank you library, and by afternoon neighbors were arranging windows like small museums. One showed a teacup passed down 4 generations, a porcelain map of survival. Another displayed a child's clay turtle with a cracked shell repaired in gold paint kintsugi as kindergarten. Someone put out a photograph of a grandparent who had danced at 80 proof that knees sometimes have souls. The bunker window held Stephanie's miniature house with the stove light wired to a tiny battery. People stopped, peered in, and smiled in that particular way you smile when you have just seen someone else's heartbeat and it didn't frighten you. At the end of the route, kids collected stamps on their maps. Annie, entrepreneurial as ever, offered commemorative lemonade this time with a choice of optimistic or realistic sugar levels. Archie stamped maps with the gravity of a border guard, but the grin of a man who had not expected to like the job. On Sunday, church hummed with the afterglow of Window Day. During the post-service mingling, which was 90% pastry management, Sister Margaret squeezed Stephanie's shoulder and said, "You're teaching us to make our homes brave." Stephanie answered very seriously, "Homes are already brave. We're learning to notice it." The following week, school introduced a pen pal program with a class from another city. Stephanie's letter was an ode to stove lights, dog bravery, and the secret social life of refrigerators. She asked her pen pal what their home smelled like. "We smell like toast and promises," and whether they had any windows that felt like friends. The reply came from a girl named Lila who wrote about a balcony where wind told jokes and a grandfather who could fix anything except sadness. Stephanie taped the letter beside her bed and wrote back, "We can't fix sadness either, but we can sit with it until it forgets how to be so loud." As summer leaned in the neighborhood, decided to repaint the playground equipment. It had been the color of faded instructions. Now it would be optimism, blue curiosity, yellow, and apology green. The painting day turned into an accidental festival music from someone's old speaker toddlers, discovering the taste of air near paint teenagers, pretending not to enjoy themselves while enjoying themselves. Archie, assigned to the bench restoration team, argued that benches should remain their original wood color out of respect for tradition. Annie convinced him to compromise with classic brown plus 2 cheerful stripes. "Now it looks like it knows how to listen," she said. "Benches are trained for that," he replied. By late afternoon, the swings gleamed, the slides sparkled, and the bench looked like wisdom in a cardigan. Thunder, on a short leash for safety, supervised with the seriousness of a small mayor. The mayor awarded himself a nap under the newly thoughtful bench. That evening, back on the porch, Stephanie asked the question that had been practicing in her throat. "If I write a book about this year, can I call it Rooms with Air? Only if there's a chapter about grocery bills that made brave choices," Archie said. "And a chapter about stove lights," Edith added. "And a footnote about humming," Stephanie concluded. "Multiple footnotes," Edith insisted. A bibliography of hums Archie corrected with a mock groan, and they smiled into the soft dark. It would not always be easy, of course. The future had its own choreography, some steps learned, some invented on the spot. There would be days when Thunder got sick, and they learned a new vocabulary at the vet. There would be tests that landed on desks like unfamiliar birds and a math problem that made Stephanie doubt numbers and therefore reality for a solid afternoon. There would be a time when Laura from Child Services moved to another district and sent a goodbye card that said, "I was supposed to observe and secretly you taught me." There would be a moment when Gloria announced she was taking a class at night to learn a new skill, and the house applauded with spaghetti. There would even be a season in which Floyd stuck to every schedule on his calendar and showed up for Wednesday dinners without needing maps. When that happened, Archie grilled chicken like victory and quietly added a pen to the emergency drawer. For signing futures, he said, pretending not to be ceremonial. For now, though, the house was content to practice its breathing. Stephanie wrote a final note for the season and placed it on the fridge in crooked letters that had always told the truth, even when they tilted. "Home isn't where storms don't visit. Home is where we learn the weather together." Edith kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Put that in your book." Archie, adjusting the note by exactly a millimeter, muttered, "Make sure the book has a sturdy cover." Thunder barked at nothing, which everyone knew was something, and settled at Stephanie's feet as if placing an official seal on the document called tonight. The stove light glowed not as a spell, but as a practice, and Northern Avenue exhaled again. Inside, one house walls leaned closer, not to eavesdrop, but to keep the warmth from escaping. The refrigerator stood a little taller, stuffed with small prophecies and big truths on paper. A chair that had once been territorial made room for a shoulder that now belonged. And somewhere between the hum of a dog dreaming and the hush of dishes drying, a girl closed her eyes, knowing that even if the Thunder auditioned for drama, there were 2 people down the hall who could translate loud into livable. That knowledge does not end storms. It teaches them manners. And so the street slept, and the house slept, and the little orchestra of domestic things, clock pipes, window latch, distant elevator sigh, played a lullaby you could only hear if you believed in refrigerators that keep notes in humans who keep each other. In the morning, the sun would throw its first joke of light across the floor, and someone would step into it and laugh. They would all remember to be ordinary in the brave way. And when the neighbors asked, as neighbors do, how are things, the answer would come easy, honest, and a little funny. Better than rumors, cheaper than therapy, and the airs on the house.